Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Oxfordian Outlook. I know it's been a while since we haven't been live, but we've been cooking up something really exciting for a lot of you who are watching us. As usual, let me just remind you that we're live all of our social media platforms. That's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook for now. And I'm so super excited about this because we've been cooking and planning this particular session today, and I'll give her introduction in a bit. But let me just tell you about a personal story. As somebody who's been aspiring to be in the education business as a freelancer or as a business owner, I would want to really do something which is exciting and big and just be a coach in the field of education. I happen to meet this wonderful lady who's joining me today, Yvonne Hoggarth, over a session that we were both doing. We were participants there, and we thought that we would just, connected immediately. Why? Because we were both working with, young adults, we were working with professionals as well, and there was a lot of synergy right there in that. We got to talking and realized that there is so much that people who are actually uh, starting off from a 9 to 5, but then thinking about how to freelance into or venture into a career in education. What are the different opportunities there? So we thought, let's do the next Oxfordian Outlook right on that. So I'm welcoming today Yvonne Hoggarth, and she'll do her introductions. And we want to keep this session as interactive as possible, so you could, pull in your questions. We'll be looking through the different chat platforms that we have and try to keep it as interactive as possible. On that note, Bjorn, hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. Yeah, I'm really delighted to be here. So, yeah, welcome everybody. Shall I introduce myself?
Yes, please do. I mean, let me put the first question to you rather,
Okay.
because I know we've been speaking, but I was really thinking that it's such a wonderful story where we look at people coming in from diverse backgrounds who don't really understand the potential that they see in the education sector. So, just tell me a little bit about your story. How did you start off? What was the first initial step that you took? How has the journey been so far, like for Bjorn?
Yeah, so I've been really lucky actually to have worked my entire career in education. That's coming up to about 30 years, but not always in the field that I'm in now. So I started off in international education, so working abroad and teaching English as well. And I got into that because actually I really just wanted to travel. And I think that's quite common, I think, for people teaching English. And then I realized that I absolutely loved teaching. So from there, I moved to, I came back to the UK and I retrained and worked in secondary schools for a while, and then moved into further education, sixth form, and into sort of leadership and management roles there. And then sort of more latterly working in higher education. So I've done quite a lot of different sorts of roles in education. So I've been a teacher, I've been in teacher training, I've done support work, I've done mentoring and coaching, and then leadership management, and also being a school governor as well. So yeah, I've been really lucky, and also have really valued the opportunities to work across different sectors of education. And it's something I'm quite passionate about, is how much we can learn from each other in different sectors, because I think there's just so much scope for collaboration and learning, and yeah, there's just opportunities there.
Absolutely. So 13 years, that's like, almost for some people that did say that, that's actually a lifetime and they're
Yes.
thinking about retiring now. But I know you haven't
No.
retired and you're working on some wonderful initiatives. So, what is it that you do and where did you find that, missing link? Coaching in education, as a coach in education, that's something that, a lot of people will be thinking, okay, is that a missing link really? And did you find that missing link an opportunity, or did it work out for you?
Yeah, I think I came to coaching probably. I've been coaching sort of throughout my career, but I think I came to it more seriously, I suppose, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And yeah, and it was just a sort of lucky sort of coincidence that I think, and then wanting to go freelance as well. And I thought, well, here, this is a good way to go freelance and to start my own business. But yeah, sort of the missing link that I saw with coaching was, well, when I trained to be a coach, I kind of realized the applications, the potential for applications actually in education, because it has such a wide reach, really. I think if you are a leader in education or in any sector, actually, you can use coaching skills to develop your kind of relational leadership, to develop team building. If you work in the classroom in practice, coaching skills can be so useful, I think, for developing your communication style as a teacher, for student engagement. And also, I think perhaps we see coaching more typically in support roles, so linked to kind of mentoring practices as well. And I think that, again, it's a really great tool for mentors to have in their toolkit to support learners in, I think, becoming more independent, really, and learning resilience and so on. So I sort of understood, really, coaching to have this real wide range of applications, and thought, how come this isn't more part of everybody's training? And I wish I'd come across it earlier, actually, in my career. So then that sort of motivated me, really, to think, well, how can I then spread the word? And I think for me, it's through offering coaching skills training to people, and also working as a one-to-one coach.
Hmm.
So
Excellent, excellent. And I think I'm just thinking out loud, on that. You've been on the other side of the spectrum, and you do mention that, when you were in that teacher role, I'm sure you would be like, under a lot of, maybe you didn't have enough time, or maybe, you wanted to have enough time to actually find those resources. And so you're talking about a toolkit. Could you tell me a little bit more about that also?
yeah, so I think what coaching offers is a communicative toolkit, really. So for people to develop to apply to any aspect, really, of their role, to improve. So I think for leadership, it's kind of obvious, really, isn't it? You can use, coaching is about developing your active listening. It's about developing your questioning strategies. It's about developing how you give feedback. So there's some real clear kind of sort of wins there, I think, in leadership, for improving how people develop teams, or work on one-to-one, for example, leader manager, with their direct reports. But I think it's also, those sorts of skills are so useful for classroom practice as well, and for supporting staff with peer kind of coaching activities, so they can sort of develop each other. I think for me, when I was in both teaching and leadership roles, so in teaching roles, I think I always felt there was a kind of gap with how teachers are supported to develop in their careers. There's quite a lot of support in early career for teachers, but less so as you become more established and you want to grow. And that's where, mentoring, coaching, all of these strategies become so valuable, because you don't necessarily want more input of content, of things to learn. You want to develop yourself from the inside, and that's what coaching does. And likewise, I think, for another gap is around leadership training for educators who transition from being a teacher or a lecturer, and are thrown into a leadership role without really much prior kind of experience. So that's another area that I hope to fill the gap on in offering leadership training, particularly thinking about program leadership, where people might be sort of in a middle leadership role. They're still teaching, they're academics, but they're also having to manage programs or people or resources.
Wonderful. And I'm just looking at, and putting my hat on. I'm not a teacher, but I'm a trainer facilitator. And what you're mentioning also about how there is a variation in roles, right? Where usually a teacher in a teacher's role, the expectation level is that, you're going to the classroom, you're going to do the teaching, the delivery of the teaching and the concepts, and then there's going to be assessment. However, in most of the cases, it's just a culmination of you being a mentor as well, you being a coach as well, developing your team building skills as well between the teachers, ensuring that there is synergy as well. What do you think is, the lowest hanging fruit rather? Is there general a sense of distinguishing the roles? Do people generally, in your experience, do you think that teachers go through that phase of learning? Or if they don't, do they find it as a difficulty when they have to juggle so many roles together?
Yeah, I think there's gaps in terms of the training, actually. Generally, I mean, I go back in my training because it was quite a while ago,
Yeah.
although I obviously do updating. But I think you generally taught how to, well, how to teach. You're sometimes not really actually often, always taught about how to manage a session or facilitate a session. You're taught more the sort of teaching toolkit, perhaps the skills. You're often taught perhaps also the subject knowledge. I think there's gaps definitely there in all the other stuff you have to do in education, actually. And there's so much that sits around teaching. And generally, there's generally, I think, good sort of advice and guidance around things like assessment and planning and that sort of thing. Although perhaps there are also areas where things could be developed. But I think it's more the kind of the context in which people work, actually, that is not something that is taught particularly well, and the sort of challenges that educators face. And I'm talking here cross sectors, because
Yeah.
going back to that point I made earlier, actually, there's a lot of similarity between those sorts of challenges that people face, whether you're working in early years or lifelong learning. And I think that's where there's some gaps, actually. The context in which people are working, some of the challenges that brings, whether that's institutional or from that wider sector, because it's a highly regulated profession in the UK. And that causes in itself lots of challenges where you're juggling something I need to do because the organizations asked me, because the regulators asked them, or something I need to do because my student needs it in front, and they're sat in front of me now. So it's all of that, I think.
Yeah, no, wonderful. And I think I'm just connecting the dots with what you're saying beyond that. Definitely the challenges that educators are facing. But I think with your area of work or the kind of work that you are doing, where you're actually developing these skills, I think that's also a great opportunity for somebody who's actually looking at ways to start a career in education. Because you see, a lot of people we might not glamorize the education sector as a sector of choice, right? We would all want to work with the big tech companies and work for big brands, and education is always seen as kind of like in the priority list. I'm not talking about a majority of people, but a good majority of people would not categorize it as the first career of choice. But what you're trying to perhaps, I think, build is, and what I'm taking out of it as an opportunity, is that a lot of people who want to start off in the field, they do need that skill set. And if you're sending off these skilled educators into the workforce, then their trajectory and their professional progression is going to be way advanced. Do you agree with the thoughts?
Absolutely. I think in terms of coaching, one-to-one coaching, that is so valuable at all sorts of levels. So whether you've progressed into a kind of leadership or middle leadership, senior leadership role, it can really help you with some of those challenges that we were talking about. Likewise, if you're a classroom practitioner, then it can help you develop those teaching and learning skills, those student support skills. But equally, if you're at the start of your career, having some additional support, absolutely, I think it can just help guide you. It can help just give you the confidence, I think. So yeah, 100%, I'd agree with you. And yeah, going back to your point, I think it is a career of choice, I think, but it's a particular kind of person, and you have to be, you have to want to give back, I think, in education, because that's what that everybody in education is doing. That it's not a career for if you're wanting to make loads of money or necessarily progress in a very traditional way.
Yeah.
It's a career if you want to give back. And there's something really that I think something that education gives you that you struggle to find elsewhere is that every day is different if you're an educator, and you're entirely responding to the people in front of you in the room one day, and on great days it's all about learning. And like, what better job is there than jobs that are all about learning?
Yeah, no, what, absolutely, absolutely. So tell me something. How do you work? Do you work with individuals on a one-on-one basis to coach them? Do you work with smaller groups, larger groups? How does it work?
Yeah, so I do a mix of things. I work with organizations sometimes, so to do consultancy work, but I also work with groups, and that might be a group within an organization. It could be a university or a college that have asked me to deliver some training, for example. Or I also do online training. So that's where people come from different organizations and they sort of sign up either as individuals or through their organization to do, and it might be a one-off training, or it might be a sort of a series of modules within a course. But I also offer one-to-one, and that's the coaching offer that I have. So the coaching is for, it could be for leaders, it could be for educators. I do some career coaching and also work with entrepreneurs as well, maybe people, students, or people who wanted to move out of education into owning their own business.
Yeah, wonderful. And how receptive have you found organizations who want to work on these skills? Because, it's also about, building the capacity of the workforce that's going to, take the brand name forward for a college or a school or an institution. So how's the response been like? How difficult was your path when you were going to make that first sale and close it?
Yeah, I think it's challenging in education because of the financial
Yeah,
position that all organisations are in. So
yeah,
that's a very real, and I understand that challenge. So it's actually challenging approaching organisations from that point of view, because you feel for them that they haven't always got the money, and they might want to procure a service, but they can't because of the funding. But I think organisations absolutely value that, and want to invest in their staff, because education is a service industry and the staff are where it's at. I mean, if that they are the main part of the organization, without investment in their staff, you can't have good teaching and learning, you can't have happy students. So there's definitely that, there's no disagreement on that front. But yeah, it's challenging, I'd say, because of the financial climate that we're in. But I think it's all about finding a niche, and also, I guess, talking the same language as the institution, which, I can do that because I have that wide background and have the experience.
yeah, absolutely. So what you're saying is that once somebody has gone through the leadership training, you know how we call it the master trainer training, then they're in that position where they could also then contribute and go back and actually also have more team members resort and follow the same procedures and the processes and the tips and the techniques that you're sharing. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm all about sustainable professional development. So it's about equipping people with the tools that they can then take back to their organizations to have impact. But also, I'm interested in training the trainer type approaches as well. So where organizations want to upskill a number of their staff, for example, in coaching skills, so that they can then upskill internally too, so that I'm just passing it on. Yeah, I'm really interested in that, because I think that is a really good way as well to make something very affordable, if you like, for an organization. They just invest once and then it's passed on, it's cascaded.
Absolutely. I haven't really asked and opened the platform for questions, but we do have one. So I thought we'll quickly just take this question. So if somebody has to start a coaching session with you, what would be some of the steps that they'll have to take? Is there an initial evaluation that you do, or how do we go about it?
Yeah, so generally people contact me and then we arrange a free kind of discovery call. So we have a chat, and I run through what coaching is and what it is, and we just check that we've got the same view of what's what that service is, and also find out a little bit more about the person and what they're wanting to achieve through the coaching. And it's really about then seeing if you're a good fit, because I'd say this with any sort of, if you're approaching anybody about coaching, it's really good just to have that chat and see if you think you could work with that person. And then from that, if we decide to go ahead, then we organise, it can be just a one-off session. So it might be just to work through something that's like an issue or a challenge, or it could be a series of sessions. So it could be, 6 to 8 sessions, say. And in that process, we usually identify some goals, some aspirations. We review where the client's at. So we look at where you are now, where you want to go, and then work out a plan how to get there. So it's all about exploring the challenges that you're facing, but also about then the opportunities, and with the idea that it moves you towards a sustainable point with the tools that you're equipped with to be able to then just launch yourself.
Absolutely. No, sounds good. I think that answers the question. And for those of you who are asking how to get in touch, this is the LinkedIn that I've just plugged in for Bjorn. You could just leave her a personal inbox and, just also visit the website. It's really nice. It's really personal. I've gone through it, so I know that. And you could just read the story also behind the person who's sharing this. I know we said that we're going to keep this 20 minutes, Bjorn. We've just gone a little bit beyond, but that's all right. I just want you to know that you said that you've been doing it for a couple of years now. Do you wish you would have started sooner?
I think the honest answer to that is no, actually, because for me it was the right time, and
Yeah.
I sort of, I'm really really value the experiences that I've had in different organisations in my career. Having said that, I would always say to young people, go for it, because I think when you're young and you start a kind of venture, you're often you're not so risk averse. I think you're more and maybe you don't have as many responsibilities. So I'd absolutely encourage people to go for it, when they're younger. But you probably know yourself when the right time is, I think. And I think it's about listening to your gut actually on that one.
Yeah, and I guess absolutely, because I think for somebody, I'll speak from my personal experience that, I've met with and dealt with so many people who actually are looking for, decent white collar jobs, and education sector, even though people say that, it's still saturated, there's still a lot of demand. There's still a lot of demand for, you'd say, supply work and,
Yeah.
becoming a cover supervisor and becoming a teacher's
Yes.
assistant. And all of what you're saying is also the qualities and the requirements in terms of, behavioral competencies. Technically you could be there, right? But
Yeah.
all that you're talking about is behavioral competencies. And people need that kind of a hand holding and a support, and they don't really know where to go. Even if you're working with big recruitment, teaching recruitment agencies also, they don't really provide that support. So I'll just want you to, just briefly just shed light on that how is somebody who's working in, let's say, a not too permanent role, how can they actually also benefit from, the coaching sessions, the leadership sessions? How would it benefit in them chalking out, starting off on a white collar career path for themselves?
Oh, 100%. So, I mean, absolutely. I think coaching is valuable at any stage. And actually, sometimes it's really valuable at that point where you're perhaps a bit unsure about which direction you're going in. Like for example, in education, what sector do you want to be in? There's a whole set of roles that you might want to do, like you mentioned. It's so varied in education. There's everything from, what you might imagine, which is teaching, to support roles, to working in project management, to IT. So, there are decisions to make around all of those sorts of things. And then, if you need to upskill as part of that, how do you go about doing that? What's the next steps in terms of training? And then where do you seek out those opportunities? So, for example, applying for, where do you look to apply for jobs, depending on the sector, because again, that could be different. And absolutely. Then for starting it, like getting started in roles. So for the sort of first, say, 30 days or whatever, getting you really prepped up so that you're super confident when you enter that new role.
Yeah, no, wonderful. I like I said, I'm so super excited because every time I hear about this and I see the work that you're doing with learners, that that's the kind of skill set, capacity set that they could do. My final question to you, Varun,
Okay.
is that what is the ideal timeline for like a particular coaching session if somebody has to, sit down with you? Do you like customize plans, or is it a one size fits all approach and you have like a set pattern of the number of days or weeks that it takes for somebody?
No, it's completely flexible actually. And mostly I coach online, but that's just usually because that's how people prefer. Um, I guess a session would normally be about an hour, but that is also there's some flex in that. And the sort of number of sessions, the frequency, all of that is determined by the client. It's very client led as a process. Everything that's discussed is determined by the client, and your role as a coach is not to direct, it's more to guide and support, and also to challenge when it's appropriate to challenge and when it feels right. So it's not about giving the answers, it's about asking the questions actually, and the questions then prompt that person to find the solutions themselves, or come to sort of have reflections, reach insights. So it's a kind of learning experience really. And a lot of what you learn in coaching, there will be some things where you will make decisions, take next steps, but actually it's something that stays with you, so you'll be pondering on it for like years to come and thinking back to that coaching session when I thought about this. Because sometimes it takes longer, doesn't it, to develop than just in that short time frame that you might be with that in that coaching relationship.
Yeah, yeah, no, wonderful. So there goes. That was another question. I didn't have the capacity to actually type it out right there, but I thought that, it's worth mentioning that, that's the approximate amount of time that it's going to take somebody to actually, sit down. And absolutely, I completely agree with you. I think sometimes all you need is, like a shoulder, like a pat,
Yeah.
right at the back, and somebody's saying, all right, go for it. And these are some of the tips where you can be a facilitator and you can reflect on some of these learnings. This has been phenomenal. We've gone beyond the 20 minute
Oh,
mark, but I think
thank you.
conversation was really, really good. So for those of you who want to actually get in touch with me on, this is her LinkedIn. I'm just plugging it in here again. So if you want to take a screenshot of it, do that. We will make the recording available very soon up on the LinkedIn and the YouTube and the Facebook channels as well. And hopefully it will be a learning experience. We do the Oxfordian Outlook, like I keep mentioning. It's a CPD activity for us at the college where we want people to focus on their careers, whichever sector they're talking about, any sector that they want to go into. There should be some entrepreneurial spin to it. We want people to be more financially empowered. Look at the qualifications that they are venturing in, their professional experience in particular sectors, but put up an entrepreneurial spin to it. So I thought education sector this time around, let's have Vyon on the Oxfordian Outlook, and she can tell her journey about freelancing, setting up her own consultancy in this particular domain, and how some of the opportunities, how can you turn the challenges into opportunities, is something that you need to look at. If you are a speaker who is looking also for an opportunity to come on the Oxfordian Outlook session and give back to the community at large, like Rion was saying, you should have in you the capacity to actually give back, then just reach out to me. I can be reached out very easily up on LinkedIn or on the Oxfordian Outlook website. So just reach out to us and we'd love to have you on board. Today, I'm so glad, Mion, you took our time. And I know we've been, working on some wonderful, fabulous things as well coming in the future. Who knows what the future holds? But thank you so much for taking our time. And I wish you all the best for your future ventures and the wonderful work that you're doing, developing educators.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, everybody. Till I meet you next time. I don't know whether it's going to be next week or the week after that, but stay tuned. And we have these Oxfordian Outlooks, a lot of episodes up on our YouTube as well. Just take a look, listen to it as a podcast, or just watch it. As long as it's helping you with your careers, that's our mission. Is solved. So thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.